for 13.7, which is slated for December 22nd, 2020. This is our last release for the year 2020, and we are all looking forward to 2021. We are delighted to share this one. It's packed with a lot of amazing updates and features. And if you're live, you can follow us along on about.gitlab.com/direction/kickoff. As usual, there are a lot of issues here where you can help participate and make things better. We welcome your contributions. With that said, we'll go through the sections today, starting with enablement, led by Josh. And then Eric will walk us through the dev section, which will cover manage, plan, and create stages, followed by Kenny, who will lead us through the ops section, which covers verify, package, release, configure, and monitor stages. And we'll end with the sec section of the DevSec's ops lifecycle and cover secure and protect stages with David DeSanto. With that, I want to just remind everybody that we plan ambitiously and things are subject to change. That, take it away, Josh.
Thanks, Anoop. Really excited to talk about what we have coming here in 13.7 for the enablement section. I think, Anoop, if you can stop sharing, I can get going here. One quick note is that we can't highlight everything that we have arriving in this release. And there's so many good things that I encourage you to please take a look at the group videos that we have linked on this page. They can include more detail and more content and context. And so they're great to go through and watch. But with that, let's jump into the improvements and the highlights. And let's start off with features and customer requests. This is a really exciting release for our Kubernetes deployment of GitLab. And we're addressing a lot of the key requests, which is really exciting for us. The first is we are working on an operator to allow us to deploy GitLab on Openshift. This has been a pretty major request for public sector, as well as also other aspects of people who utilize Openshift. And we're making some major progress here in this release. We are working to utilize our Helm chart as the internal kind of templating engine. Since we know it, we've put a lot of time into it, about 2 years, and it'll allow us to accelerate delivery of this as opposed to having to rebuild all that templating logic in the operator. So we're doing that first with the enablement all going, and then we'll fan out and tackle all the other charts. And then we'll also work on a couple other details around things like submission of images for certification to Red Hat to get that ball going as well. So a lot of progress here, and it'll be very exciting to have an operator, which will work on both Kubernetes and Openshift, but also, of course, is required for Openshift. So great news there. We're also working to close a key gap of functionality for the Kubernetes deployment of GitLab, and that is to offer support for pages. With application changes being done largely, we can now go ahead and start to incorporate this into the cloud native kind of architecture. So we're building a pages container in this release that will then enable us to make the Helm chart changes to deploy it in the near future as well. So really exciting. This has been a highly demanded aspect of our Kubernetes deployment of GitLab. Similarly, also I think the last remaining gap is server-side hooks. And so we're working to add support for that as well. So if you want to use a custom hook for perhaps doing some more detailed secret scanning pre-push, you can now do that after 13.7 with custom Git hooks. And so excited to have that gap closed as well. So overall, very exciting. We're also moving on to the usage and usability and have recently launched in 13.6 a updated navigation experience in search and global search. And so you'll now get a left-faceted experience to more easily filter between these issues. And we'll be working to continue to add additional faceting options in this release. And as part of that, we're also working to move issues into their own dedicated Elasticsearch index. We'll do this for performance reasons. We expect to have about a 54% performance boost by doing this, which is a great user experience improvement, but it'll also allow us to index content that is unique to these issue types. And so you're going to expect to see more facet options as a result of doing this for the various content types. So very excited there for the UX improvements this will unlock for moving forward. Moving on towards single platform aspects, we are working to enable package value verification. This is the first verification content type using our self-service framework. And so we'll be adding support to give admins the confidence that their content was replicated correctly, and also building the framework out so that we can add additional content types verification more quickly in the future. So it will allow us to accelerate the progress here on verification. And we're also working to make improvements to the overall memory consumption by reducing consumption. And so we're doing a pretty big spike of investigation of available options that we have. You can see this going on right now. We'll look to wrap this up by the end of the week. We'll then go through and kind of rate these based on impact and on effort. And we'll pick a few of these for 13.7 to go ahead and execute. And so looking forward to the benefits of that. And finally, we're also looking to improve how we do data migration testing. We want to make sure that if we have a migration, that it runs well on all of our instances, including GitLab.com. And we're also going to be doing testing to make sure that we can roll it back. It's oftentimes faster to roll back a change that had a negative impact than it is to try and fix it and roll forward. And so we want to make sure we have the confidence that if the change includes migration, we can do that safely and have a quicker time to restore on GitLab.com. But we're also working on making sure we arm our developers with the tools that they can make sure these migrations work on production-like data also as well. And that way we can have less need for these rollbacks in the event that we have to do that. So overall, some great content there from Enablement, a super excited release, and I'll pass it over to Dev to talk about all the great things coming from the dev section. Eric.
Thanks, Josh. That was great. Really excited for all that stuff. I'm going to highlight quickly what we're going to focus on in the dev section for 13.7. As usual, we have two themes. Our first theme is kind of new and competitive features, and our second theme is usability. And so we'll start with some of our competitive features and move on from there. The first feature I want to highlight is what we're calling provisioned accounts. Provisioned accounts is largely an account that is essentially tied in scope to a specific group. This is important because on GitLab.com, organizations want more control over the users and what they can and can't do within the kind of the confines of their GitLab experience on GitLab.com. If you're running a self-managed instance, you have that today. And so we've been struggling with how to make this work with respect to accounts that already exist and personal accounts, and there's just not a great solution. So one thing we're going to begin iterating towards is this concept of a provisioned account. And what we're going to start with on an MVC is if an account is just-in-time provisioned using SAML on a specific group, it'll be scoped essentially to that group as a provisioned account for that group. So really excited to begin working on this experience here, which should really help those larger organizations and enterprise customers be focused on making their user experience a little bit more tightly controlled on GitLab.com. The second thing I want to highlight is we're going to introduce webhooks for members at the group level. So this is useful because a lot of our customers want to understand specific changes when members are changed, when a user is added, maybe automatically grant access to a specific subgroup or project, maybe capture that event in their own data store. This is a really great use for a webhook. And today you have to schedule calls to the API to understand this information. So it's not a great experience. So excited for that. The next thing that I want to highlight, one of our plan teams is going to start working on is epic boards. So we just finished up our epic swim lane work in 13.6, and now we're going to move on to epic boards. So this is the ability to view and manipulate boards, epics on a board, just like you would on an issue board. And then lastly, I talked about this last release, but it begs repeating. Our GitLab team is highly focused on making GitLab cluster a great experience. And we're going to do that by focusing on variable replication factor, which is the ability to set a specific customized replication factor for each of your projects so that you can more responsibly manage your GitLab cluster storage. Moving on to some of the great usability improvements that we have. I want to highlight one that is going to separate filtering users from sorting users. So if you go to the members list today, the sorting and filtering options are in the same dropdown, and it's hard to just find them. And so we're working through the design today, but it could potentially look like a common GitLab pattern across the application where you see a filter bar at the top of your member list. So we're really excited for that improvement. The second one is removing our vertical value stream analytics tiles. So today in value stream analytics, you have basically a vertical view that takes your stages of your value stream and views them vertically. We think it makes more sense to view this horizontally. And so what we're going to do is to make this the experience defaulted to on, which lets us do a few things. It provides a more intuitive experience moving from left to right, which is how most people view the flow of work. but then it also allows us to move specific information and charting above the fold, so you don't have to scroll down to see that information. So a really nice usability change I'm looking forward to. The next one is simple but important. We're going to provide a filter list by blocking issues. So you can sort the issue list by the number of issues that particular issue is blocking. And that's a lot of the instances of the word issue there. But this will really help you understand how many issues do you have that are blocking a specific issue, and then be able to just quickly grok and understand, are there specific issues that you need to focus on to unblock as many teams as possible throughout your organization. We're also going to make a change to render Jupyter notebooks with rich output. Today, we don't properly render all features of a Jupyter notebook inside of the GitLab repository view. And so you can see what this looks like. If you're in GitLab today, we don't properly render a lot of the embedded images at which you would get if you were working in a GitHub repository. So we're going to make this a better experience because we have a lot of users that are using GitLab to host Jupyter notebooks. We're also going to make a change to the Diff view for merge request file ordering. Today, we have a really inconsistent and weird file ordering that happens when you're on the Diff view. And to just highlight this, what I'm going to do is call your attention to this Bootstrap migration file, which is actually part of this style sheets directory, not the framework one. It's super confusing when you just glance at it. And so we're going to make that change so it's just much more intuitive which folder a specific file is a part of. We also have a great feature inside of GitLab, which is the apply suggestions feature. So as a code reviewer, you can make a suggestion, and then the original author of the merge request can go back and apply that suggestion super easily. But you can't modify the commit message. We just give a default commit message. And in projects where the commit messages have specific style guidelines, this feature essentially can't be used. And so we're going to provide the ability to add a custom commit message when applying a suggested change, which should really help the usability of that particular feature. One other area the dev section has been focused on is really enhancing the experience of our settings and navigation. And we're going to start spiking into that by simply removing some options from our left sidebar and just having the toggles be consistent. You can already move certain objects today, but not all of them. And so in 13.7, we're going to make project settings to remove the analytics left navbar and the operations left navbar. And then lastly, I want to highlight just a few really great improvements coming to our Jira integration. So the first of these is the experience if you're in Jira, but coming from GitLab. And we're going to really make that experience a lot better by essentially sending build information through our Jira Connect app. So this will be pipeline information that you'll be able to view inside of Jira if you've installed our Jira Connect app through the Jira Marketplace or the Atlassian Marketplace. And the second one is we're also going to send deployment information. So it's just make that integration, that experience much better if you're using our Jira Connect app. Which I would highly recommend you check out if you're using both of these tools together. The second improvement we're going to make is the experience of Jira inside of GitLab. A few releases ago, we shipped the ability to view Jira issues inside of GitLab. And then we also shipped the ability to authenticate with your Atlassian user as well. And so we want to essentially marry those two experiences together and give you more information about your Jira issues inside of GitLab if you've authenticated with your user. So the first step in that process is to add the issue detail view list from the Jira issue list right inside of GitLab so you can view the issue details of a Jira issue. As always, there's tons more stuff coming to dev. Please check out the Kickoff page, and Kenny, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. Super excited to see more GitLab content in Jira, especially deployments and jobs and pipelines. Let me go ahead and share my screen. My name is Kenny Johnston. I'm covering the ops section today for our 13.7 kickoff. As a reminder, the ops section includes 8 different groups covering 5 stages: verify, package, release, configure, and monitor. I'm going to jump into our first theme for today, which is going to be usage and usability. Just one specific thing to highlight, and I want to emphasize the importance of this type of work from within GitLab. GitLab is a single application for your entire DevOps platform. We know that many of our users are currently source control users, so they use our core Git and repository capabilities. And we really want to encourage them to adopt this combination of source control and CI. So we're working on an improved pipeline editor experience in our newly created pipeline editor team. There's a 3-year vision that the team has been working on as a result of a bunch of research that has been done into how users adopt and add CI to their existing GitLab instances. And so we've created some mocks for long-term vision that include a homepage to see what kind of templates you can have and how to get started, ability to visually edit your CI YAML by adding different values here on the, you can see on the right side, and an embedded editor. This is all our long-term vision, but we're going to start in 13.7 by adding the homepage with a built-in editing experience for your CI YAML. So it will allow you to come to a pipeline authoring page within your application, see a representation of what your current pipeline as it exists looks like visually, be able to edit it and directly commit changes within that editing experience, and also get some static validation and our linter experience while you're performing that. This is really critical to encouraging users to adopt this kind of combined source control and CI that we know and from practice know adds value to their DevOps experience. So we're really excited to see this first MVC delivered towards that long-term vision in 13.7. The next theme I want to talk about is new markets, and Josh touched on the Openshift market and the importance of it for GitLab. The runner team, and the runner is the core execution engine for GitLab CI, is also going to be working on an operator to enable the runner to work in Openshift environments. So they'll be working on that in 13.7 as an MVC with a planned kind of full GA at the start of the year. We're also working on on-call schedule management. So this is a whole different side of the ops section where we're talking about your response to incidents and alerts and how you might schedule who should be on call and who should be tagged when a new alert or incident comes in. So the monitor team is going to be working on the initial MVC for schedule management. That includes the ability to create an initial schedule, assign specific users to time periods during that schedule, and then know that when alerts come in, they will automatically, in this case, we're starting with email those users with options to add additional escalation policies and communication policies as we build it out. A really great MVC that showcases our kind of single platform's ability to add value in new places that you might have existing tools or might not have existing tools and have homegrown solutions, that the ease of having GitLab be your one application for single data store and single authentication mechanism makes it really easy to get started with these critical DevOps functions. The next category that or theme that I want to talk about is single platform. And Eric mentioned when talking about analytics, the importance of DORA 4 and other operational metrics to quantifying how successful your DevOps transition is and how successful your adoption of DevOps is. So in 13.7, our release team is going to be working on adding a chart to our CI/CD dashboard that already includes pipeline metrics for deployment charts. So this will show you deployment frequency right here within our tool based on, you've orchestrated deployments with your GitLab CI/CD. We're going to be keeping track and give you a good metric of how frequently and at what time periods your application is getting deployed. This is a great step towards providing visibility across your platform into how successful are you in adopting DevOps by counting one of these critical metrics, which is deployment frequency. The last topic that I wanted to touch on is actually less of a theme and more of an announcement. I wanted to highlight that on November 2nd, Docker Hub began enforcing rate limits to pull packages from Docker Hub that they had previously announced. And we've immediately noticed that users were concerned about what happens when they encounter those limits. Will that stop their work? And so across a number of different teams, GitLab has been prioritizing work to enable some level of security that we can, in some sense, if you get blocked by that rate limit, that we can still allow you to operate your DevOps platform. Those include in CI, allowing you to define the pull policy for each image. So maybe you can say only pull a new image from Docker if it's not present locally. That will enable you to not always hit the Docker API and account for your rate limits. We're also going to be enabling this via the runner. So that is also work that the runner team is doing. And our package team is working on enabling the dependency proxy to specifically be able to pull images. The function of the dependency proxy is to allow a layer so that if Docker Hub or you have some other repositories aren't available, that you can still pull images, but it does require some metadata being fetched from Docker Hub that we're going to enable, that you can still pull images through the dependency proxy even when Docker Hub is unavailable. So that's a quick reactionary thing that we've been doing across a number of groups within the ops stage in response to what has been a pretty big industry news about Docker Hub's new rate limit policy. As always, tons of videos. Please check them out from each individual group. With that, I will hand it off to David.
Thank you, Kenny. And let me get my screen shared. So let's dive into the sec section updates here. So first, and Anoop touched on this at the beginning, since our last update, we actually renamed the section. It used to be named Secure and Defend. It's now named Sec. The reason for that is GitLab is focused very heavily on Dev, Sec, Ops, and now you have Kenny as Ops, Eric as Dev, and my team is Sec. So it works very well together. For static analysis, the team is focusing on support for monorepos for SAST. This is actually improving the current functionality that's there. We're seeing a trend within our customers who are wanting to do security scanning, that they're moving more often to monorepos. And with this, we'll be able to still identify what scanners would need to run and get those kicked off based off what we detect in the monorepo. From dynamic analysis, they're focused on extending the site profile. They're actually doing two improvements to it. The first is adding support for API scanning. So this is bringing DAST API to DAST on demand. The other area they're looking to do is extend the authentication support, as well as add in support for request headers. And when we first started giving you updates related to the on-demand scans and the profiles, we started with just up here, having the name and the target site. And over the last several releases, they've been iterating to add in additional items. So here at the bottom, you can see support for authentication, and then additional headers as needed. So very excited to see this becoming to full fruition. From the fuzz testing side, there's two main updates. The first one is they're going to be releasing the MVC for corpus management for container, or for coverage guided fuzz testing. Here on the screen, I wanted to highlight that our API fuzzing will now have its results showing up in the merge request view, as well as in the security dashboard. This work is bringing the output of the scanner into our security report format, and that will then make it auto-populate out into those views. Here's a screenshot of what that would look like. So here you can see we are on the security dashboard, and we chose to look at this vulnerability that was identified, and it brings us to our standalone vulnerability page where you can get all the information related to headers that were sent, responses expected, the artifacts collected, and of course, information as to what the vulnerability is and how to remediate it. And then finally, the Threat Insights team is focused on some really nice improvements to the vulnerability management experience. The first is finishing up the support for Jira issues, being able to be attached to those standalone vulnerability pages. So again, you'd be able to come in here and actually directly create an issue within Jira. This, of course, is building off of the work that is being done by Eric's team. But this is going to allow you to track your vulnerabilities across both platforms as you're using Jira for some of those functionality. And the final item is including support for special references for vulnerabilities. So today, when you're on an issue or a merge request, you can always do like a tilde and then type in information for your label, and then that'll reference out to that label. Here you can see we'll be doing the same thing for vulnerabilities. You'll type vulnerability, colon, and then the vulnerability ID. It'll also auto match. So it'll start identifying ones that are available. The one thing the team's doing, which I think is very cool, you can actually reference vulnerabilities across projects as long as you know the namespace. So you'll be able to, after the colon, put in the namespace in the project, and then be able to see those vulnerabilities and interconnect them. The final stage update you on is protect. In case you noticed that we did actually rename the stage. We renamed it from defend to protect, and we've changed the focus to be on security orchestration and container security. With this refocus, we also grew the team slightly to be able to focus on providing cloud native security components. So on the right, you can see a screenshot from the direction page. If you look at our offering today, we have container host security and container network security, which begin to cover the bottom parts of this pyramid. You can see application control. We offer application allow listing today, as well as file integrity checks. With this change, we moved the container scanning category over to help enable scanning of containers in production. And then we did add a new category called security orchestration, which I want to tell you about today. It's very exciting. So the security orchestration category is focused on allowing you to manage your policies, whether that's scanning or schedule, as well as doing it both in development and in production. And the first focus is taking those DAST profiles we've been talking about over the last several releases and allowing you to use them to set scan execution and approvals related to the DAST scans. So the first screenshot here, you'll see there'll be a policies option and a list of policies. You're already using the policy manager today for your container security options, but you'll now be able to actually create policies that are related to that scan execution. So when you click on an item, it's going to open up a slide out here, and you can see you can edit this policy or edit the scan profile that's being used. And then when you're creating a new profile, it looks very similar to that experience for container host security, where you'll be able to set the scan execution information or the schedule. And then the role is an if-then type functionality. So here you can see we're saying, scan the default branch daily. We can select the time. And then if we don't have a profile, it's going to tell us we need to create a scan profile, so we can actually then use the policy, and then you can select it to run. The first step will be DAST at the project level, but we will be bringing DAST up to the group and instance level. We'll also then be incorporating the rest of the scanners over the next several releases. So with that, as always, please check out the direction pages for a lot more information. I just scratched the surface on all the great things that the team is doing today. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Noob.
Thank you, David. That is an amazing, amazing amount of stuff coming in this release. I made a few notes about things that I specifically am looking forward to. Openshift support, obviously, search faceting, enablement. I think this will be a game changer for people looking and searching on the GitLab platform. Provisioned accounts will continue to help with our enterprise customers and large customers. I have to slip this joke in. Epic boards will be epic. Right, and then responding to Docker hub limits and being mindful of what our users are facing, on-call schedule management, and all the updates on sec and protect stages. This is unbelievable work. I also want to leave the team with one final change that we are making, which is that we are moving to a working by default product principle. We know this is hard, and we welcome your feedback and inputs on how we make this happen and the caveats or the gotchas that we need to face. What we essentially want to do is the ability to have features on by default, but also set up by default so that we can responsibly make these features work in your environments without disrupting regular flow. With that, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you again next month. Bye.